Welcome Stampin' Pretty readers, it's Mary Fish. I have a new tutorial for you today to show you a couple techniques I used in creating this card. It's a standard size, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I used a really cool new stamp set. It was my immediate favorite in the Holiday Mini Catalog. It's called Day of Gratitude. I'm going to move this around a little bit because I don't know how the glare is going to be, so you can see the stamps. And that will be available to see on September 1st. I will be able to share the images at that point, or you will be able to see it in the catalog. So getting back to the card, I want to point out that I used my felt flower that I created recently. The video tutorial is on my blog, stampinpretty.com. The only thing I did differently with this little felt flower is I did use a dauber to put a little early espresso on the edges to give it a bit of a vintage look, and of course one of our gorgeous antique brads there. The first step I'm going to show you would be how to create this larger element, or I'll call it a flower for simplicity's sake, using the rock and roll technique. You know, it's been around for a while and many of you are probably familiar with it, but it really is beautiful and always worth considering when you create a new project. The next thing I'm going to do, and maybe you've seen it, this is the top note die with a little twist. I'll show you how to do it. What I love about this is how these little peaks work perfectly with the little peaks of the flower. Those are the things that really trip my trigger. And also how this little curve works into the curve of the G. So you'll know the mind of Stampin' Pretty likes the little stuff artistically. And then I added some buttons with our hemp. And last but not least, this is also in the same Day of Gratitude stamp set, which by the way is available on both wood mount if you're a wood mount person, or clear mount. But what a crisp and beautiful image it makes with the Poppy Parade ink, and a nice touch for one of our vanilla envelopes. So let's get started. I want to start with the stamp itself, which is gorgeous. I mean, there's so many things you can do with this stamp. You can put something big right here. You could do a partial onto a piece of cardstock just to have this part exposed. I love stamps like this. I was nutso, and I'm still nutso, about our big medallion stamp. One of the tricks to effectively doing rock and roll is always start with the lightest of the two colors. I'm using Poppy Parade first. And I'll ink it up really good, every little inch of it. And I always kind of bring it to the edges to make sure I get the middle, because it just makes me crazy when I stamp and realize, oh my gosh, I didn't get the ink in the middle. So, I'm sure you've been there. So that's inked up nicely. And then here's Early Espresso. Poppy Parade is one of our in colors. They're now good for 2 years. Early Espresso is one of our new core colors. I really like it. It's less red than chocolate chip and gives a nice finish. All I'm doing is just literally rocking and rolling chocolate chip around the edges. It is not meant to be perfect. So you can see hopefully how that looks. Be careful, I got a little too crazy. I'm going to wipe that off just so that I don't get it on my piece if I rock it too much. Then I'm going to take my very vanilla cardstock, put it down. I push down really well. Another big trick, if you're a clear mount stamp person, when you adhere the clear mount stamp to your block, hold it for 3 full seconds. I'm just making sure I get every inch of this done. So, oh, it looks great. I love this technique. So you can see how it's got a beautiful red center, and then it has the edging on the outside, which I think is beautiful for fall. But honestly, you could do things like this for Christmas and still use this stamp year round. I'm not going to cut the whole flower out, but I want a couple tips for you, especially if you're a beginner. I always leave just a hint of white. I just think it's easier to cut that way. And then you'll notice that I'm moving the paper. Maybe you can notice that, I'm not sure. I'm moving the paper, not the scissors. It's much easier this way to keep control and just going around those curves, kind of like a European car on the roadway. You can just navigate those curves and make it look really cool. So those are a couple tips in terms of snipping. It doesn't take that long to snip this out, and it's really, really pretty. Then one of my favorite things with the Big Shot, hoping you can see this, I'm taking a piece of Poppy Parade textured cardstock. I'm also using, this is the top note die. I don't know how well you can see it, but hopefully you can see it. And I'm going to layer my sandwich. One thing, a little tip for you, layer the side down that you plan to have up on your project. So if it's designer paper, I find it looks the nicest and the neatest if you layer the side you plan to show down. It's for two-sided paper, for example. This textured side is going to go down, and I'm going to lay it on top. And can you tell these cutting pads are well loved? Just going to make sure I still have it lined up. Well loved. They're very scratched. They work just fine. So don't worry about it. And I'm going to run it through my Big Shot. I use my Big Shot almost daily. It's just a handy dandy item. And then Top Note is probably my #1 seller of the Bigs dies. So I think it's kind of neat to find a new way to use it. So now, I'm hoping you again can still see it. All I'm doing, still with the textured side down, I'm turning it the opposite direction to make it more square. Just really, it's actually pretty simple to line up. Just making sure I've got about the same above and below. And I'm using these little peaks on the cardstock and on the die to line it up again. So now I'm going to run it through one more time. Make my sandwich. Hopefully you'll see it coming through. One neat thing about the Big Shot, oh, I got a little squeak in there. You don't need any electrical, which is amazing. So, is that cool or what? I absolutely love that design. I think it's just super cool. You can obviously do a square on it and use it as a background mat. I'm just nuts about it. So one last look. Here is what we just created using the Top Note die and literally just flipping it the opposite direction to cut it into more of a squared shape. And here is the final result. And as I said, this tutorial for this little felted flower, super easy to make and so pretty. I've had so many people email me since the tutorial that they made a whole batch of them. And the other stem that I think is so pretty from the Day of Gratitude, I had to double check on the new title, Day of Gratitude stamp. Thank you so much for joining me today. This is very, very fun for me, and I hope you find the video tutorials inspirational and helpful in your stamping. Look forward to chatting with you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.